Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Dennis Brown. I want to thank you for joining me on my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. Today, I'm going to share with you a quick story, right? It's kind of my sales origin story, right? It's something that most people have never heard. And I would assume that a lot of people wouldn't ever expect. So that's what I'm going to share with you, how I was the absolute worst salesperson that they had ever hired, right? So that's what I'm going to share with you today. Let me double check something I may have screwed up already. So yes, checked it because my audio is on the wrong mic. The sound should be better now. Thank you again for joining me. This is my weekly Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. I do a live training every Monday at noon. That's Eastern time, so you can put that in your calendar, put it in your cell phone, whatever you want to do. I try to send out notifications, but I do these live trainings every single week. If you've been a part of these trainings and you've enjoyed it, you've learned something, hit the like button now, share the stream. Let me know that you want me to come back every week and do these free trainings. And then hit me up in the comments and let me know the city and state you're logging in from. I'd love to try to give some shout outs. Okay. So, and if you hear the dogs in the background, hopefully my wife is going to quiet them down because somebody must be here. Maybe a UPS driver or God knows who. But anyway, here we are and we're off to the races. So again, hit me up in the city, in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from. I'll try to do some shout outs first. So the agenda is going to be this. First, we'll do some shout outs. Then we're going to do the training, which is kind of the story. I'm actually going to share 4 lessons from the story that you guys can use to help you grow a 7-figure freight brokerage. And then we'll go into live Q&A at the end. So if you have questions about today's live or about becoming a freight broker, a freight agent, or freight broker sales or marketing or whatever it is, hold those questions to the end because I will do my absolute best to try to get to everybody's questions. Let's do the shout outs. Welcome Jabral from Philadelphia, Carl Gillis from Bethlehem, Georgia, Betty Jones from Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome Andrew from Indianapolis. Welcome Renee from Rochester. Love it. My neighbor city. Corey from Billings, Montana, as usual. Jason from Minnesota. Thank you everybody for joining. Again, we are streaming this on YouTube, Facebook, and where else? YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Oh, how can I forget about my LinkedIn folks? So yeah, we got a bunch of people logging in. We're going to start the training in about 1 minute, so hold tight. And again, I do have, this is something that I wrote a while ago, which is kind of like this, you know, my origin story in sales. So I kind of wanted to share it with you. I was thumbing through my Google Drive and I thought it might be something you guys might be interested in. Vicky, welcome from South Carolina. Mac from Oklahoma. TMP Hustle from San Antonio. Welcome. Thank you guys for joining me. Let me grab a quick drink. Have you guys ever, they're not a sponsor, I don't get paid for this. Have you guys ever drank Kill Cliff, the Ignite drink? It's the Joe Rogan drink. I'm a Joe Rogan nerd. I listen to all his episodes. I love it. But dude, it's awesome. It's called Flamingo Joe. It's an energy drink and it's a little bit like a little spicy, but it's pineapple. It's probably going to get me wired, but that's okay. Little energy never hurt. All right, so we're going to be getting going here in about 30 seconds. Thank you all for joining me. We got people joining from all over the US. Sometimes we have people from abroad. That would be exciting too if you guys are here. But today I'm going to share with you my origin story into sales and how I was the worst salesperson they had ever hired and how I eventually was able to go on to do over $200 million as an entrepreneur, as a freight broker. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. If you're catching this on replay, hit me up in the comments with hashtag replay. I'd love to hear from my replay folks because I know a lot of people can't make this in the middle of the day, but I do appreciate you guys coming in after the fact. All right, so let's dive in. Let me just do a quick drink. Man, that's amazing. Tech check. You guys can hear me. You guys can see me. Awesome. All right, so again, today, I'm going to share a quick story with you of how I was the absolute worst salesperson they had ever hired. So this is a quick story. This is a story that I had written kind of an outline of my own personal story. And I found it in my Google Drive and I wanted to share it with you guys. So I'm going to be referring back to the notes really quick because there's some details in here that are really, really important that you understand. So I'm going to take you back a long ways, and this is going to age me a bit. This is going to date me a little bit, but it was 1992. I was a senior in college and I was the typical broke college student. Okay. And I needed money. I mean, just like everybody else, I needed money for, to pay my bills, pay my rent, and the occasional night out with some buddies. So I saw a job ad in the college newspaper and they were hiring salespeople. So I applied for this job and had no clue what to expect. And I'd never had any sales experience. So you can imagine my shock when they actually hired me. Okay. I mean, I had no clue what sales was all about. I had no experience in sales. My family, my parents had never been in sales. Nobody I knew was ever in sales, right? And so I got hired, and day one, I remember being so scared that I probably only made a few sales calls the entire day, right? It was like the phone weighed 100 pounds, and I was deathly afraid to put myself out there and to make any phone calls. So we'll fast forward a couple weeks into this whole charade, and I'm basically just trying to hide because I don't want them to find out and the gig is up and then they fire me because I needed money to pay my rent. I mean, that's just being honest, right? And then it happened. One of the top salespeople in the office showed me his commission check, and my mind was blown. And the first thing that came to my mind was, if this guy can do it, I can do it. So that's when I began my journey. That's when I went on a mission. What I realized is that I knew that randomly just picking up the phone and reading some dumb, outdated sales script was not going to pay the bills. All right. So what I did is I immersed myself into every book, every cassette tape, every video, every sales training I could get my hands on. Now, this is pre-internet, okay? So it's not like today where you can jump on YouTube or you can jump on LinkedIn or you can jump on just the internet in general and get all access to all kinds of training. This is pre-internet, but I immersed myself, okay? And what I learned was some very important lessons early on, and that was, how to get my prospects' attention, how to follow up without annoying and alienating my prospect, right? How to close the sale without feeling or sounding like a slimy car salesman, right? So I learned some very important lessons early on. And then what I realized is I started to apply those lessons. I started to apply what I had learned. And believe it or not, you're going to be shocked. It worked, right? Sales started to come in. It was pretty amazing. And I was shocked myself, but I was also hooked. I realized at that point that I had just hit gold. I had realized that I had developed a skill that could pay my bills long into the future. And I didn't realize the ultimate impact of this on myself, but later on it came full circle, and we're going to talk about that. So I want you to stick around because I'm going to share 4 lessons that you can pull from this training that will help you to hit 7 figures as an entrepreneur, 7 figures as a freight broker or freight agent. So hang tight for those tips, okay? So based upon what I had learned, in my sales immersion, I had created version 1.0 of my sales system, okay? And so within a few short months, believe it or not, I was one of the top salespeople in the office. And those lessons and that experience put me on my way to developing the version 1.0 of my freight broker sales accelerator system. Okay. And so fortunately, over the last 30 years, I've been able to do over $200 million as an entrepreneur. I built 4 multi-million-dollar companies in 4 different industries. And for those of you that have followed me, you kind of know the story. But this is, again, the foundation of my freight broker sales accelerator system that allowed me to do over $200 million as a broker. And so along the way, I've taught this sales system to over 1,000 students from around the world, right? My freight broker sales accelerator. Many of them have went on to get tons of clients, build 7 and 8 figure freight brokerages, right? I've been very, very blessed. I played a small role in that. And my system is now the foundation of their business. And so you can see the success in sales. What I want you to understand first, before we dive into that, I want you to understand success in sales doesn't have anything to do with me personally. Okay? Success in sales doesn't have anything to do with me personally. I'm just an average Joe, believe it or not. The fact is, I'm an introvert. Most people don't realize it, but I'm very introverted. So it's possible to do well in sales, and because it didn't come naturally for me. Success in sales is about having a winning system, a winning sales system. That's what you have to understand. It's kind of like having a sales GPS that helps you to navigate through the sales process easily and painlessly, so that customers fall out the other end, right? And so ultimately that became the foundation of my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator program. And again, I want to share with you 4 lessons. I want you to lean in really quick because there are 4 lessons I want to share with you. And the number 4 is most important. So you got to stick around for number 4, okay? Number 1, the foundation of all the success was the fact that I was willing to try new things. I was willing to fail. I applied for that sales job. I had no experience. I had no idea what I was doing. I jumped out of the plane and I didn't have a parachute, and I found one on the way down before I hit ground level, right? Thank God. But for you, be willing to try new things, whether that be a new business, whether that be a new sales technique or new strategy or something that you've learned. Be willing to try new things. Be willing to fail. That's probably one of my superpowers, is my willingness to fail. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2, systems over tactics. What I mean by that is this. It's very simple. You can go online to TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and wherever else online, Google, and you can find hundreds of different sales tactics, sales scripts, sales rebuttals, okay? But the fact is, one-off tactics are not going to create a predictable and sustainable flow of new customers into your business. You have to have a proven sales system. There's a difference between a sales system and a sales tactic. I hope you understand. Sales system takes you from A to Z through the entire process. Sales tactic is just one step or one rung in the ladder, okay? That's what the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator is all about, right? The Freight Broker Sales Accelerator is where I take that piece of my brain and I teach you everything I know about freight broker sales, my favorite strategies, tactics, tools, but most importantly, my entire freight broker sales system that allowed me to do over $200 million as a freight broker. Now, if you guys are curious about that and you're interested in learning more about that, and you'd like me to help you get more shippers, teach you my entire process, you can get on the wait list at freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Okay. All right. Number 3 lesson, number 3 tip here. Introverts can be good at sales. Yes, I'm an introvert. Most people think that salespeople have to be extroverts. They have to be the life of the party. They have to be the ones always to be the center of attention. And that's just not true, because that's not me. And I've been very blessed to do extremely well in sales. All right. So introverts can be successful at sales. Don't put yourself in that box and say, hey, I'm an introvert, I won't do good at sales, because that's not true. Some of the things about introverts that make them very good salesperson, they have a tendency to listen more than they talk. And that is a key ingredient to sales success, okay? There's a lot of other things that are there as well, but that's a key component. So just understand something. Introverts can be good at sales. They can be good as a freight broker or freight agent, okay? So don't lose that. That's very important. And the last tip that I'm going to share with you that I really want you to lean in on, very, very important that you understand, the key to success in sales is to emulate success. So what do I mean by that? You need to find somebody who's already done what you're looking to do. It's very, very simple. You need to find somebody who's already done what you're looking to do. So, for example, if you're looking to build a 7-figure freight brokerage, hire somebody or emulate somebody or find a mentor who's already hit 7 figures in sales. If you're looking to build an 8-figure freight brokerage, doing 10 million, 50 million, 75 million in sales, that's when you need to find that person who's already done that, because the challenges of going from startup to a million and a million to 10 million and 10 million to 100 million are different. So you want somebody who has hands-on proven experience as an entrepreneur, as a freight broker, as a salesperson. Okay. So that's number 4. Listen, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I wasn't sure if this was something you were going to find value in. Hit me up in the comments. Give me a range. Tell me how you feel about this training and what you learned from it. 1, meaning, Dennis, this was a complete waste of my time. 10, I absolutely loved it. This was perfect. Thank you. Give us more trainings like this. I'd love to get your feedback. My goal is to always just provide more value for you. Sometimes it's hard to come up with new topics for these weekly trainings, but I do appreciate you guys being here. If you guys want to get on the wait list for the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, it's on the screen, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. That's where you'll get full details and you'll get notified when spots open up for that program. If you guys are just interested in becoming a freight broker and you're just early in the stage and you're looking for startup training, you can check that out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Trained over 10,000 students in the startup training. And again, we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money back guarantee. Appreciate you guys being here. Hit the like button, share the stream, and I'll see you next week on the next Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. All right, cool. So for those of you that want to stick around for the Q&A, hold tight. Okay. Let's see what the feedback sounds like. All right, cool. Good. All right. 10, 10, 10. Awesome. Love it. Thank you guys for the feedback. Listen, if it's not a 10, if it's a 5, that's fine. Tell me how you feel. But if it's anything less than an 8, let me know how I can improve it. Let me know how I can make it better. That's all I'm looking for, some constructive feedback. If it's below an 8, just tell me what I can do better, right? That's all my entire goal is. I'm not here to placate my ego. I'm not here to try to be the center of attention. That's not my goal. My goal is to provide one nugget of value to you every single training that I do. If you get one nugget from this that you apply and helps you to get a shipper or helps you to get through some of the startup hurdles or helps you save some money on, by not making a bad decision, my goal is accomplished, right? I've won, right? And so have you. So appreciate the kind feedback. Cool, Betty, awesome. All right, perfect. All right, cool. So without further ado, oh, by the way, you guys like my t-shirt? Grit, talent counts, effort counts twice. That's pretty sweet, right? I like it. I didn't wear my normal freight broker Freightpreneur t-shirt today, right? I normally have my Freightpreneur t-shirt. I saw this hanging in the rack and I said, you know what? You never wear this thing. Try it, wear it, see what everybody thinks, right? Grit, right? Talent counts, effort counts twice. Cool. All right. So hit me up with questions, whether that be about today's training, whether that be about the startup training, whether that be about anything about becoming a freight broker, freight agent. I will try to get to everybody's questions today. If I don't, meet me back here next week and I'll try to answer those questions then. Hit me up in the comments with any questions you guys have. Delvison asks, what load you training? Be more specific if you would, please. I'm not quite sure what you're looking for. All right, so hit me up in the comments with any questions you have. And we'll rock and roll. Betty, thank you so much. Dennis, because of you, I should be ready to start calling shippers next week. Website should be in place. Awesome. I'm excited for you. Keep us posted, please, Betty. Yep. Okay, cool. So Renee says, I was a driver and owner operator for 35 years. Now I am a broker agent having a problem picking a niche. How do you decide? Okay, cool. Quick story first. This will help give you a framework of how I picked my freight broker niche and then how I strategically expanded that niche over time. And then I'll kind of give you a little bit more broken down framework. So when I first started as a freight broker, I didn't know what niche to pick either. I had no experience in logistics, trucking, transportation. You know more right now than I knew after 6 months of being a freight broker, okay? So when I started my freight brokerage, my niche was van, Northeast outbound van freight. That means if it picked up in a van in New York, PA, New Jersey, all the way through up through New England, and it went west or south, that was my niche. So we did not accept inbound. We did not accept loads that originated in other areas, and we did not accept loads that were on different equipment. So it was van Northeast outbound only. So what we did is we started that niche, and what we did from there, we started getting some traction. And after maybe a couple of years, we started expanding into other niches. Now here, how did we expand into other niches, right? First year we did $1 million. Second year we did $3 million. Then we did $6 million. Then we did $12 million. Then we did $18 million. And that niche expansion was part of that growth. So we started with van Northeast outbound. And then along the way, we had a lot of people that wanted flatbeds or reefers in the Northeast that we were not ready to service because we were van only. So we then expanded into flatbed in the Northeast, and then we expanded into reefer in the Northeast. And then that continued to expand our sales, our expertise, and our network, right? Our carrier network. And then we had a customer in the Northeast that had a plant down in, I think it was Arkansas, and they really needed help. And so what happened was they kept begging us, hey, listen, we need help down. We need help down here. Do what you're doing up here and help us down here. So eventually we took a good look at that area. We looked at the market, and we decided to enter the market. And we're glad we did, because we were able to become one of their top brokers in that area, helping them with some of the challenges they were facing at that time. And so that's how we strategically expanded our niche. And eventually we expanded into almost every niche you can imagine and the entire United States. That was through the growth of our freight agent program, where we had about 70 offices through the United States. And by the time I sold the company in 2016, we were doing about 80 million a year in sales. So that's how I expanded my niche. Now here's the framework. There's 4 ways, 4 steps, or 4 components to this framework. Number 1, you can do it by equipment type. Number 2, you can do it by geography, right? Number 3, you can do it by industry. Number 4, you can do a hybrid. Okay, so let me explain to you. Equipment type, van, reefer, flatbed. All right. Industry, bottled beverage, food, oil and gas, so on and so forth. Number 3, geography, Northeast outbound, California outbound, Midwest outbound, right? Those are geographical components. Or number 4, which is what I did, which is a hybrid of 2 or more of those 3, which was I did van, so it was equipment based, and geography, which was Northeast outbound. So those are the basic frameworks on how to do that, right? So I hope that really helps you, Renee. If you need additional assistance, go to my blog at freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog, and then search for niches. And you'll pull up an entire blog post where I break all this down, plus an entire video that will kind of break that process down for you as well. And I hope that helps. Good question. I get that question all the time. Carl Gillis asks, does a freight broker need both an MC and a US DOT number? Every freight broker that applies for their MC number will also be issued a DOT number. Yes, every broker now has a DOT number. Now, back in the day when I first started back in 2003, brokers didn't have DOT numbers. But now, since I think it's been over a decade since some of the changes they made. But yes, every broker will now have not only an MC number, but they will also have a DOT number. So yes, and it's a part of the application process. When you file for your freight broker application, they will issue you a US DOT number in addition to an MC number at the point that they've approved your application for a broker. Good question. All right. Who else has questions? Kind of slow today. Normally I have more questions than I have time. You guys are a little shy and quiet today. That's okay. But if you guys don't have questions, listen, I've got a to-do list as long as my arm, and I'm sure you do as well. So either ask your questions now or forever hold your peace. I will be back next Monday with another Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. If you do have questions today, hit me up in the comments now, and I will do my absolute best to try to answer. Okay. All right. Delvison asks, how much do an entry-level broker make? Okay, so if you are a licensed freight broker by the FMCSA, okay, meaning you're your own broker, you own your own authority, right? You went through the FMCSA's authority application process. You've dotted all the I's, crossed the T's, and you've got your authority in your hand saying that you're licensed to broker freight in the United States. That's what I'm kind of going to share with you. So opinions are going to vary, but here's what I can tell you, that like any business that anybody starts, many people that start that business will fail. It's just a fact. Not everybody is going to succeed, right? Their experience, their training, their motivation, their financial situation, not everybody's going to succeed, right? So let's say the pool of people that get their freight broker authority is this big. There's going to be a percentage of them, and I don't know exactly how many, but there's going to be a percentage of them that are going to grow a successful business. So what does a successful business mean? Typically, startup brokers are probably going to make somewhere in the range of $50,000 to $100,000 a year in profit, depending upon their expenses. That's a small book of business. That's someone that's doing less than $1 million a year in sales. That's a very small brokerage. Okay. Once you start moving up into 2 and 3 and 5 and 10 million, that's when you can start making a multiple six-figure income. And again, I can't give you the average because those numbers don't exist, right? As an independent freight broker, those numbers don't exist. But I would tell you that probably about, in my opinion, probably about 80% of brokers out there are doing less than 5 million in sales. But if you're doing 5 million in sales, I'm not very good at math, but 5 million in sales times a 15% profit margin, that's $750,000 in gross profit. Let's call it minus a couple $100,000 or $250,000 in expenses. You're still making $500,000 a year before taxes. Now, those are just rough estimates, and I can't guarantee you, and I'm not promising you that, but I can tell you that the hardest part about building a 7 or 8 figure freight brokerage is getting your first shipper. Getting your first shipper, moving that first load. Now, why is that? Number one, it takes you understanding the sales process. That's the reason why I put together the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator program. There's the link on the screen. If you guys want to get on the wait list, you want details about that, if you want to be notified when spots open up, get on the wait list. But number one, you have to understand that sales process. Number two, once you move the first load, it builds an enormous amount of confidence. And then you go from 1 load a week to 2 loads a week, and from 2 loads a week to 4 loads a week, and from 4 loads a week to 8 loads a week. And the next thing you know, you're doing 20 loads a week, and you're making a multi-six-figure income with just a small handful of shippers. So that's how it can happen. Now, again, experience mileage will vary, right? There are people that become a freight broker and freight agent that fail miserably and never make $1. I'm going to be totally upfront with you about that. But there are many others that go on to build successful and highly profitable businesses. So I hope that helps. I hope that gives you kind of a sense as to what you can expect as a startup. And again, no promises, no guarantee. The only guarantee I can give you, you take the Freight Broker Bootcamp program, I give you a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. If you join the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, which is the wait list on the screen, then I guarantee you that the system that I will teach you, the process that I will teach you, the strategies I will teach you absolutely positively work. And we have proof of that because we have many students and clients that have went on to leverage that to build 7- and 8-figure freight brokerages. So I hope that helps. Let's see what else we got. Ooh, tough question. Christopher asks, how can I get motivated to work? Well, have you ever been motivated to do anything? It's a kind of a rhetorical question. Have you ever been motivated to get up to go to work? Have you ever been motivated to do something for a spouse? Have you ever been motivated to learn a new skill? Have you ever been motivated for anything? What I want you to do is I want you to tap into that, okay? I need you to tap into what made you be motivated, right? Usually you have a vision of why you're doing something, right? Why you're doing something. You need to tap into that why. I'm not a big believer in motivation. Let me explain to you why. Motivation, You can go to Instagram, you can go to YouTube, you can go to TikTok, and you can pull up these motivational videos. And you know what? And you'll feel great for about 5 minutes. And then it'll all wane and it'll disappear. Have you ever experienced that? I know a lot of people have. I know I have. What I'm a bigger believer in is inspiration. And what I mean by inspiration is finding something that inspires you. Maybe that's my story. Maybe that's someone else's story. Maybe that's the success of someone else. I remember when I first started, there was a local freight brokerage in my area. I had never done my first load. We had done 0. And my motivation, they had been in business for several years. My motivation was I wanted to do what they were doing. They had a well-established freight brokerage. They were very successful. They're still very successful. They've done an amazing job. And that was my goal. They were my target. They were my why. They were my part of my inspiration for getting up every day and going through all of the struggles of building a successful freight brokerage. So I'm not quite sure that I can answer that question because it's a little bit different for everybody, but that's how I did it. And that's how I'd recommend you do it. Find some inspiration and don't focus on motivation. I hope that helps. Very hard question to answer, but I did my best to try to give you some nuggets. Oh God. Okay, Renee, is it true that you can make money off the loads posted already on the load boards? No, don't waste your time. Either you're going to be doing one of two things. Either you're going to be double brokering, which you absolutely positively should not do. So do not waste your time. I do not know one freight broker in over 20 years in the industry that's ever built a successful business from trying to get loads off a load board. Even if they were direct with a shipper, even if it's a shipper load board, I've never found a broker that's ever built a successful business that way. Okay? There is no shortcuts. There is no push button hack. There is no way that you can have some software that's going to do it for you. It doesn't work that way. You have to learn the fundamentals of how to sell. It's the reason why, after having thousands of students go through my freight broker boot camp, I had a lot of students come to me and say they were struggling with how to get shippers. So I put together the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. Took me over a decade to get off my butt and do it. Why? Because I knew it was going to take me hundreds of hours to do it. And so when I started sharing my sales system, my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator program, I saw a lot of people having these epiphanies of understanding the difference between how they were trying to do it with these generic, outdated, boring cold calling scripts to leveraging my strategies, developing compelling sales hook, having a sales cadence and a multi-outreach touch point strategy, right? All the things that I teach in my sales accelerator. And since then, we've had, again, over 1,000 students go through that program. And, I occasionally bring on new students, new clients into that program. If you guys want to check that out, I'm going to beat the dead horse here. Get on the wait list. If you're not on the wait list, if you need help getting shippers, there's 2 places you need to go. Go to my YouTube channel because I got tons of free content there on tactics and tools and things of that nature and parts of my sales system. And then the other place is get on the wait list. That's my best suggestion for you. But no, you will not build a successful business from a load board. Okay. Al Calloway asks, I'm trying to do research on a company before calling, but I'm having trouble figuring out what kind of vehicle they need before calling. How long do you spend on researching the company? Well, when you get good at it, you're probably only going to spend 2, 3, 4 minutes. Initially, it's going to take you a little bit longer. But the biggest telling factor on what type of equipment they're going to use is the type of product that they create. So, perfect example, bottled beverages predominantly go in vans, sometimes in reefers if they need to be temperature controlled, but in most cases, vans. Building equipment can go in vans, or it'll sometimes go on flatbeds, right? So you'll learn some of the industries that you're going to be targeting. And that's why you shouldn't be calling, you shouldn't necessarily just randomly be calling people without having a niche. That's why you should identify a niche, whether that be bottled beverages or the food industry or oil and gas or whatever the case may be, whatever your niche is, you need to identify that And then once you understand the types of equipment that they use, you're never going to have that debate again. And yeah, there will be leads that you can call where you might not know exactly what type of equipment they use, but you can understand what their products are. And then you can start asking a few questions after you get their, build a good first impression and get past that initial, the initial friction that you're going to get from a normal sales process. And then those questions are going to clarify what type of equipment they use. And then you're going to navigate through that part of the conversation. So I hope that helps. I'm scrolling. Give me a minute. All right. So Zoran asks, can you explain the difference between broker factoring company and a dispatch factoring company? Who paid the driver for the service? Okay. So listen, this is something you guys I gotta do a video, a training on this because there's so much confusion. Okay. So if I'm a broker and I have a factoring company, they are factoring the invoice from my shipper. Okay. So they've established credit, they understand what the credit risk of that shipper is, and they're willing to give me 90 to 95% of that money up front, or so I can pay it to the carrier, right? But they finance the shipper's receivables for me. When a carrier has a factoring company, they are financing receivables to me, the broker. So they're advancing money. So it's two different transactions. I, as a broker, may have a factoring company pay me for that invoice, but a carrier, just because I get it factored to me, doesn't mean that the carrier needs to factor the invoice to me. I could hold that money if we wanted, right? If I had normal credit terms and they didn't need the money quickly. So what I want you to understand is that brokers factoring invoices from shippers and carriers factoring invoice from brokers is two different transactions. They're not tied together. They're totally independent. Because take, for example, if I were a broker and I didn't need a factoring company and I had my own credit, my own cash flow, and my own receivables, and I didn't have any issue there, then a trucking company could factor that invoice through a factoring company and I could still get paid. I could still pay that invoice quickly. Okay. So what I want you to understand is that factoring simply provides, it's a cash flow tool, and it can be used in different elements of the process, but they're different. So I don't want to, I know it's a little confusing. I'm actually going to do a training on this because I get this question all the time and I don't know why. It is a little bit confusing, but just because I'm factoring my invoice as a broker doesn't mean the carrier's factoring their invoice to the broker and vice versa. So hope that helps. Okay, I'm scrolling. Give me a minute. TMP also says, how do you approach a customer who have their own brokerage and assets in place for their freight movement? I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't waste my time. It's going to be, you're trying to swim upstream. And at that point, you're co-brokering and they probably don't need your resources, right? There are very, very, very few shippers that have their own brokerage. Focus on the shippers that don't have their own brokerage. Focus on the shippers that don't have their own trucks. The majority of shippers, when I say the majority, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that 90% of the companies out there that ship products don't have their own trucks or their own brokerage. It's a very small percentage of shippers that have their own fleet. Okay. Unless it's maybe local, right? But not over the road like most brokerage, right, handles. So I wouldn't waste my time. I'd focus on shippers that have a need. And that, remember something, this is what you have to understand. No need equals no sale. Find a need, find a sale. Fundamental, basic 101 sales. Okay, Wonder Lady asks, should I work under a licensed freight broker before going on my own? I think that becoming and starting as a freight agent is a great place to start because a couple of things. Number one, less risk, less expensive, and easier. So starting as a freight agent can be a great way to start. Again, you don't have to get your broker authority. You don't have to get a broker bond. You don't have to get insurance. You don't have to do any of that, right? The broker does all that, and you as the agent operate under their veil, and you're paid a commission somewhere between 50 and 70% of the profit that you generate. So I think becoming an agent under a licensed freight broker is a great place to start. Now, and you can always transition from there. Let's say you're 6 months or a year or 2 years down the road and you've built a book of business and you feel very comfortable and you've got some money saved up and you want to start your own authority. You can always do it then. There's no reason why you can't, as long as you don't sign a non-compete, which would be stupid. Don't sign a non-compete. Don't sign away your customers. You're an independent agent. They shouldn't have any rights to your customers. So ultimately, yeah. And I think it's a great place to start. Now, if you have a little bit more financial resources, if you got a little bit more experience, then getting your own broker authority can work very effectively too. I didn't become an agent. I started as my own broker authority. Many of my students and success stories did start out as brokers. But if you don't have the comfort level, you don't have the experience, you don't have the financial resources, or you're just nervous, start out as a freight agent. Way less risk, because the fact is, if you can't make money as a freight agent, you're definitely not going to make money as a freight broker. Okay? So I hope that helps. Christopher asked, last Thursday I had 10 compatibility statements printed out, and I went to the truck stop here in town and was able to pass them all out. Is that a good way to get shipper loads? Well, if you're passing them out to carriers, then you're probably not going to get shipper loads, because carriers don't control shipper loads. Now, if you're talking to carriers and you're willing to pay them for some referrals, then you might get some referrals into different shippers if you're willing to do some sort of compensation to them. But by going to the truck stop and passing out some sort of brochure or one-page sales sheet or compatibility statement to a bunch of carriers isn't necessarily going to get you shippers. Matter of fact, it's probably not going to get you shippers. Now, you might have some conversations with carriers, which might be interesting, that you might be able to utilize at some time during the process. But I doubt you're going to get shippers. So I hope that helps. Is there a load board for brokers to bid for loads? Yeah, there are some, but don't waste your time. They're a waste of time. I'm going to tell you right now, if I never get this question again, I'm not mad at you, Jamal, but I'm going to promise you this. If you will never, ever, 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 okay, build a successful freight brokerage or freight agency trying to go to a shipper bid board and bid on loads. It will not happen. I promise you. You have better luck and a higher probability of hitting the lottery. Go to your local supermarket or convenience store and buy some lottery tickets, because you're more likely to win that than to build a successful freight brokerage trying to get on a bid board. Doesn't work. There is no hack to get you shippers without learning the fundamentals of how to sell. You have to learn the sales process. If you started this business thinking that you could go online and just get loads off a load board, you're crazy. And I feel sorry for you. And you should probably punt right now if you think that's a winning strategy, because that is not a winning strategy. And this goes to everybody listening to this, live and on replay. It doesn't work that way. Okay? And I'm not mad at you, Jamal. I appreciate the question, but I get this question all the time, and people don't understand that the only way to get shippers in this business is to learn how to sell. Pick up the phone, email, LinkedIn, face-to-face, referrals, right? Those are the fundamentals. Those are the channels and the strategies that are going to develop relationships with shippers that'll eventually turn into customers, that'll turn into revenue. Okay? Hope that helps. All right. I think I got my point across. All right, cool. Listen, Joe Almighty, longtime, follower, and shows up to all these lives. There are no shortcuts. Okay. Uh, I, I I wish I could tell you there's a shortcut. There are better ways to get shippers than what most people understand. And that's what my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator is all about. That system was designed to help new brokers get their first 5 to 10 shippers and hit 7 figures in sales. That's what that was designed to do. That's why I put that entire program together. So if you're serious and you want me to be your coach and you want to learn those strategies in that system, get on the wait list. Okay. All right. Listen, guys, what time is it? All right, cool. So it's almost been an hour here. So listen, there's the link for the wait list. If you guys are interested in just startup training and you're just looking to become a freight agent, or you're just looking to become a freight broker and you want that startup, that fundamental training, don't go to the wait list. Just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Get rid of the wait list. Just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Trained over 10,000 students there. All right. Had that program since 2009. And we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. If anytime during the first 60 days you're not happy, just send us an email. We'll refund your money. I can't make it any easier than that. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Listen, if you did, if you learned one nugget from this, if you got one thing from this training, hit the like button. Do me a favor, hit the like button. If you're on Facebook, share the stream. If you're on LinkedIn, share it with a few people. If you're on, repost it on LinkedIn. I appreciate it. Most of our customers, most of our students all come from word of mouth and through, searching Google and through word of mouth and YouTube. So listen, appreciate you guys being here. I'll be back next Monday with a new Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Again, hit me up in the comments with any questions you have after I log off here. I'll try to come back in the next week and maybe try to answer some of those questions in the stream. Have an awesome day. Have an awesome week. We'll see you next week, Monday at noon. Same bat channel, same bat place. See you next week. Thanks, guys.